Just to know, this presentation is going to be recorded today, so please just keep that in mind. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you for joining. My name is Sophia Hernandez. I am a coordinator too here with the UF Office of Student Financial Aid and Scholarships. I'm joined by a couple other staff members from our office that are going to be looking through the chat, seeing if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in. They'll keep a lookout for it, and if they miss it by chance, then I'll come back around once we're done with the presentation and go ahead and answer. But today we are going to be talking about some financial aid basics, some tips, and information that may be helpful while transitioning into your first undergraduate year here at the University of Florida, and once you start thinking about what's next. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera just so we can focus on the presentation, and I will see you again in just a little bit. Okay, so once again, this is going to be our overview for today. We're going to go over a quick review of financial aid basics, the process of receiving your financial aid, what you need to do to continue receiving your financial aid, maintaining that eligibility, One.UF, how to utilize it to navigate your financial aid details, and then once again, at the very end, we'll go ahead and answer any questions that you might have about the financial aid process. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, maybe about what we're talking about, feel free to post them in the chat. Like I said, I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues, so they'll keep an eye out. And if anything, I will come right back around once we're all done. So for our overview, so as part of your journey to UF so far, you may have completed some of these items or you are planning to complete them. Starting off with the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA. This application is going to be needed for any need-based grants, student loans, or federal work study. So if you are coming in for the summer term, so you're about to start in just a couple of weeks, you should have completed the 2024-2025 application. In addition, you're going to want to also complete the 2025-2026 application for fall as well. So you'll have two FAFSAs to complete and make sure that they are sent to UF. If you'd still like to be considered for summer federal aid, there's still some time to complete it, but you want to do it as soon as possible. That deadline is coming up at the end of June for the 2024-25 application. So if you can send it tonight, definitely sooner is better than later. Another application you have most likely completed at this point is the Florida Financial Aid application, or the FFAA. You'll need to complete this application for state programs like the Florida Bright Future Scholarship. So the deadline for this application is going to be August 31st. So if you still need to submit it, or you need to update your information and include the University of Florida, you still have some time, but this may have been an application that you completed with your high school guidance counselor. You've already completed your admissions application, so once again, congratulations on becoming part of the Gator Nation. You've done a lot to get to this point. You know, you've been admitted, you've completed most likely your financial aid applications, you might have a package, so what's next? To make sure you have a smooth as a transition as possible, it's important to understand your college expenses, financial aid possibilities, and also their requirements. So we're going to go over some tips and next steps to keep in mind before you begin your summer classes in just a few short weeks. So college costs money. We all know that college costs money. So let's talk about some of the costs associated with college. So at every institution, there are various types of educational related expenses, such as tuition and fees. You have to pay for your books, your supplies, transportation. You got to live somewhere. And then you also have miscellaneous personal expenses like buying clothes, buying toiletries, and maybe you have federal student loans. So you have federal student loan fees. So all of these together make our costs of attendance. These education-related expenses are the costs of attendance that our students experience while enrolled in college courses. This is updated every year to reflect the estimated average costs of each of these components. and your costs are going to be assigned to each student file. It's going to vary, obviously, from student to student. So it may vary by actual tuition charge, your residency, maybe you're living with a parent on campus, maybe you're out of state. And maybe your academic career is different. So maybe you're a UF Online major. I'm sorry, maybe you're part of UF Online, or maybe you have a different major. So that's all going to affect your cost of attendance. And just remember the costs determine how much financial aid our office can award to students. So just keep that in mind. But within this, we have both direct costs and indirect costs. So direct costs are going to be the fees that the university bills to the student. So this is going to be, for example, your tuition and fees, maybe your books if you purchase them from the bookstore. If you live on campus, it'll be your housing, or maybe your meal plan if you are enrolled in one of those. There's also indirect costs. So the university won't be billing you for it. It's something that you buy on your own. So maybe like a laptop or clothes slash personal expenses. Maybe you're getting your books from an outside source, or maybe you're living off campus and you pay rent. That's going to be an indirect cost. It's important for you to consider your costs in relation to your financial aid income or maybe other financial assistance you might be receiving. Asking yourself, can your income cover all of your expenses? Are there more affordable options available to you? And keep in mind, the cost of attendance is just an average. So as mentioned before, actual individual costs may vary. This is just to help you kind of budget and gauge how much our average student spends in an academic year. But there's all of these costs. So how do you pay for these? So there's a couple different payment options that are managed by the University Bursar's office. So maybe you have a college savings plan like Florida Prepaid. If you do, Florida Prepaid is handled by the University Bursar's office, and it's based off of your social security number. So as long as there is a plan with that information, it will be automatically billed. The only action you need to take is if you want to opt out and you don't want it to be billed. So let's say, for example, maybe you're on a full scholarship and you want to save your Florida prepaid for later and you want to opt out. That'll be when you take that extra step to opt out on your One.UF. Otherwise, it's processed automatically. Maybe you have a third-party sponsor. So third-party sponsors can pay a student's tuition, fees, or kind of mandatory health insurance. Those are just some examples. It can be a private or public organization, maybe a trust account, a foreign country, or another type of government agency. You'll have to make sure that you submit the proper documentation needed to recognize your third-party sponsor. So documentation from the sponsor on their letterhead specifying the amount they'll cover, a letter of acknowledgement so that UF can bill them. And you want to make sure that you submit all of this information before the first week of classes. So make sure that you are getting that done. And again, if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to the University Bursar's office, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help you. You can also pay out of pocket online through your One.UF. So you can pay via an electronic check with your routing, banking information. You can also use a debit or credit card. Again, for questions about online payments or maybe even payment plans, if you are interested in those, just keep in mind those are fall and spring only. You can definitely contact the University Bursar's office to ask more about eligibility and what charges can be put towards that payment plan. You can also pay in person if you'd like to. Just keep in mind, the University Bursar doesn't accept cash, so it would have to be a personal check, maybe a cashier's check, or a money order. It can be mailed. You can drop it in person to their office. They also have a 24-hour lockbox right outside of their office that you are also free to use at any point in the day. Just make sure that your information, so the student's information, is on the check. That way, the University Bursar's office can apply it to the correct account. So we also have another form of payment, which is going to be financial aid, which is going to be what we're going to focus on. So there's different types of financial aid. There's grants, scholarships like Bright Futures, or maybe an outside scholarship. There's student employment, and then there's loans. So most federal aid programs are going to require you to complete the FAFSA. Some only require an outside application, such as scholarships. So you want to make sure that you are completing the applications necessary to receive the awards that you are interested in. Remember, eligibility can vary on these programs, and the amount can also vary on what a student is eligible for. So just keep that in mind. Your financial need is determined by your student aid index, so your SAI that you get from your FAFSA. And your total cannot exceed your cost of attendance. So we'll look at some of our more common financial aid options that our students come in with. So the first of which is going to be the Florida Bright Future Scholarship. A lot of our students come in with this scholarship. With Florida Bright Futures, students who are Florida residents have to submit the FFAA, the application we talked about earlier, just once. So make sure you are submitting that. Once you're eligible, as long as you are meeting requirements like you're meeting the GPA requirement, you're passing your courses, you are at least half time, you can use this for any semester. You can use it fall, spring, and summer. Now, just know if during your coursework you have to drop a class, you will have to pay back those dropped courses. So just something to consider if you're ever thinking about dropping a class is definitely reach out to the One Stop to ask about your financial aid package and if there's going to be any effects for that. But there's two different levels. So there's the Florida Academic Scholars. This pays 100% of your tuition and fees, and to continue renewing, you need to maintain a 3.0 GPA and complete your credit hours enrolled. The second level is going to be the Florida Medallion Scholars. So this program pays 75% of your tuition and fees. And to continue renewing, you need to maintain a 2.75 GPA and once again, complete your credit hours enrolled. The next program we're going to talk about is Federal Work Study. So for Federal Work Study, in order to be considered, you do need to complete a FAFSA because it is a need-based program. So programs that are need-based, you need to complete your FAFSA because that gives us your student aid index, which again, lets us know if you're eligible for certain programs. Since it is a federal award, you need to be enrolled at least half-time. So if you're interested in doing federal work study during any of your summers and you qualify for it, just remember, you got to be at least half-time. So our federal work study eligible students will have the award on their award package. Once it's on there, you can look for student assistance jobs on campus specifically for federal work study students. So you will just use our UFL job site and you'll search for jobs that interest you and you'll submit, like any other job application, your cover letter and your resume. If hired, you can work up to 20 hours each week. And once you start participating, you'll earn a paycheck every other week and it will go straight to you, the student, kind of like any other regular job. If you are interested in participating in federal work study, it's a great way to kind of build a network. You'll meet different faculty/staff on campus. You'll gain that work experience. You know, the main reason to go to college is to get your dream job afterwards. So great way to get work experience once you've graduated with your degree in something that correlates and help you set you up for your success. And also get you a nice recommendation letter from maybe one of your employers. You are also a student first with federal work studies, so they're typically very flexible with you and there to support you. The next one is going to be federal student loans. So again, it's a federal award, so they do require the FAFSA and half-time enrollment in 6 credit hours. So there's several different types of loans. There's subsidized and unsubsidized federal direct loans. So these are going to be loans that students take out under their name. Subsidized loans are need-based, so they are interest-free, while you are enrolled. So no interest accrues until the student graduates or withdraws from school. For unsubsidized loans, they do accrue interest while you are in school. But for both of these loans, you are not required to make payment until 6 months after you graduate. So just keep in mind, especially for the unsubsidized loans, that interest is accruing during this period. So you can definitely make payments early on, if you can. If you are offered a loan, it'll be listed on your One.UF on your financial aid award package. Students do have the option to decline a loan. You do not have to accept it. You can reduce it or decline or accept the amount given to you. If you accept the amount offered to you, you will need to complete an entrance counseling and a master promissory note on studentaid.gov. And once you complete this, we will be allowed to disperse the loan. So there's a couple extra steps that you need to take once you have accepted the loan. Because students can only take out a certain amount of loans every year, sometimes it's not enough to cover all of their expenses. So parents can apply for a Parent Plus loan as well. The Parent Plus loans can be awarded for a specific amount or up to the student's cost of attendance to pay money for any other expenses. It does require a FAFSA application, and these loans are taken out under the parent's name, so the parents are the borrower. And loan does begin accruing interest while the student is in school. But my apologies, the parent would have to submit a supplemental application on studentaid.gov as it is based on credit history. So if their application is approved, they can take that Parent Plus loan out. If it's denied, the student can contact our office about other possible options, but that's only if the parent is denied for a Parent Plus loan. If you're looking for additional loan options, if the Parent Plus loan is approved or denied, it can also allow a student some additional options for additional aid. Okay, so next one up is going to be scholarships. So these are going to be additional scholarships outside of what you may receive from the FAFSA, from Bright Futures, or from the University of Florida. While a lot of our colleges and universities in general offer many scholarships to their students, there are so many scholarships that can be found from other organizations. You can look for scholarships in various ways, maybe organizations in your community, if you're a part of a club or something, perhaps your employer or your parent or guardian's employer. Your college or department website might also have scholarship applications for you to complete. And you can also use reputable scholarship search engines, just like our SFA scholarship search engine that we have on our website. It's a great way for students to look for college awarded and private scholarships available at UF. On this search engine, you can kind of filter through depending on your major, class standing. So are you a freshman? Are you a junior? Your degree and other criteria. You can look through and search for any scholarships that you may be eligible to apply to. Make sure you are searching often and you are applying for as many as you can whenever you get a chance. You definitely want to check often in case it gets refreshed. You know, when one scholarship closes, another one can definitely open. And if you do get an outside scholarship, make sure to report that on your One.UF. We'll show you where that is in just a little bit later, but you want to make sure you report it so our office is aware of it. If your outside scholarship is mailed, you want to make sure it's mailed to our office. Our address is on the slide and it's also on our website. Make sure to add your name and UFID on the check. So once again, we know exactly who it goes to. And if you feel more comfortable doing it, you can also bring it in person to Kreiser and drop it off at that drop box that we talked about earlier. But be careful of scams whenever you are applying to these scholarships. Many scams get you to pay for information that you can find yourself for free. So be skeptical of any offers that guarantee you'll get aid or that ask for your credit card or banking information. Definitely be wary of those. They should not be asking you to give them money to give you money. So let's talk about receiving your financial aid. We already talked about the costs, the different financial aid programs, and payment options to pay for them. So now we're going to talk about how it looks like to get that money to you. So once you are admitted to UF, you've completed your FAFSA, requirements for Bright Futures, requirements for other scholarships you're getting, you should have received your financial aid package. So your financial aid package can be viewed on One.UF and it'll list your cost of attendance as well as all the financial aid that you've received. So in the future, you can expect award packages during different times of the year. So for the fall and spring semesters, they're going to be posted about late summer as we get closer towards the beginning of the fall. Summer aid packages are going to get posted late spring after your summer enrollment is confirmed, and it should be posted for you if you've completed your FAFSA application. Once you've received your aid package, make sure you understand the different eligibility requirements for your awards. For example, like federal aid, maybe need-based grants have different eligibility requirements than outside scholarships like Bright Futures. If you have federal aid, remember, you're going to want to complete the FAFSA every single year to remain eligible for it. And make sure with all of your other scholarships, you know the requirements needed to receive it again. A lot of awards can be renewed from year to year, but some scholarships and grants are awarded per academic year and not guaranteed. So make sure you know the difference so that you can be aware if you have to supplement that aid for the next year or not. And then depending on your enrollment status, your residency, if you switch majors or other type of eligibility changes, those can also affect your financial aid package for future years. After the drop add period, if your enrollment changes, your award amount may change and you'll receive a notification. So again, you want to make sure you are reporting outside scholarships as soon as possible before the semester begins. So when it comes to receiving your financial aid, here's kind of the process. So students have a drop add period where during this period, students are finalizing their schedule, they're adding and dropping classes that they may or may not need. After that period, we can determine how many credit hours students are enrolled in, and that's when we begin our disbursement process. So our office takes students' financial aid, scholarships, grants accepted, and apply funds to any charges directly billed to the student. On your One.UF, you can see your charges billed. So maybe you're living on campus, so you'll have your housing charge, or if you have a meal plan, you'll see those. Financial aid will pay for those charges next, or they'll pay for those first. If you have more charges than financial aid, there will be a balance that is up to you, the student, or perhaps your parent to go back in and pay. So you want to keep an eye on your One.UF page so that you're able to pay off debts to UF and you don't accumulate any past due debts. Now, if you have more financial aid than charges, then you will receive a refund. So any money left over after charges are paid off will go to the student as a refund via direct deposit. If you haven't set up direct deposit yet, you definitely want to go ahead and do that as soon as possible, and you can set that up on your One.UF. So this should be a checking account under the student's name, and you'll enter all of your banking information. The money is going to go directly in there. UF does not hold refunds for the student for future semesters because that fund is given to students to use for any other educational expenses like books, supplies, rent if you live off campus. It's up to the student how they use those funds for their education. To make disbursements run smoothly, you want to make sure you're submitting any permissions that you need to. So if you need to permit your financial aid to pay for direct expenses before they're refunded, if you do not permit financial aid, when it is applied, it's going to apply to your tuition. But if you have any other charges, it is not going to pay those. So if you would like your financial aid to pay for your expenses, you definitely want to go ahead and do that permission. In this case, if you do not allow it, the refund will go straight back to the student, and then it is their responsibility to go back into their account and pay off the leftover charges. So it's definitely beneficial to give permission to have charges taken care of at the beginning and then keep the refund for everything else. If you are having charges not billed to you by the University of Florida, make sure you're budgeting uh, your funds to be able to pay for those expenses. So, for example, like technology, transportation, clothes, personal items, those are not expenses that are charged from UF. But uh, charges like housing, food, maybe books and supplies, those can be UF charges, or non-UF, just depending on what you choose. So again, kind of like the wording that we used before, those can be direct or indirect charges, just depending on where you get your items from. So your financial aid refund is meant to be used for educational expenses. Coming into college, this is going to be one of the first times where you're going to have to start learning how to manage and budget your funds. If you're living off campus or you have other supplies or personal expenses you need, or you know you need to save money for future semesters, make sure you're budgeting and managing your funds in a way that you don't have to worry about paying for food or rent or anything else you know you need. There's different types of educational expenses that we talked about earlier, like your tuition, your living expenses, those miscellaneous personal expenses. You want to make sure you're budgeting your funds. You can always reference the cost of attendance on our website if you ever want to gauge what you should be saving for. For other budgeting tips, you want to make sure you're tracking your funds and what you're spending your money on. If you're spending a lot of money on takeout, maybe you want to rethink your budget and how you're spending your money. You want to make sure your funds last each semester. So funds are dispersed at the very beginning. If you're receiving any refund, you're getting it all at the beginning in a lump sum to cover you until the end of the semester. So make sure you prioritize your spending. It's okay to set some aside for saving or for emergency. Make sure you have financial goals as well. Do you want to study abroad next semester or in the future? Maybe you want to start saving. Financial stress can impact your performance and well-being. So you want to make sure you're staying financially literate on all of your funds, your saving, your money management. We have different videos and resources like our financially fit presentation on our website where you can get some tips and tricks on how to manage your finances. I believe Gatorwell also has some good resources about your finances and being financially conscious. So maintaining your eligibility, there's a couple things to keep in mind. If you are receiving any federal aid, so Pell Grant, federal work study, student loans, the federal government does require students to maintain satisfactory academic progress or SAP, or else most aid eligibility will be terminated. So to be meeting SAP, you have to maintain a 2.0 GPA. You have to complete 67% of your attempted coursework and you have to complete your degree within 180 credit hours. We check SAP at the end of every spring semester. If for some reason you're not meeting SAP, you'll be notified to your UF email address as well as your One.UF on your financial aid summary. And we'll see this in just a little bit. From which point you can complete a petition available on our website. If there's some extenuating circumstances throughout the academic year, you can definitely share them there. Our office will evaluate this petition, and if it's approvable, your financial aid eligibility will be reinstated. Other things to make sure you do to maintain eligibility is complete any requirements on your One.UF page. So if you're submitting a FAFSA, sometimes students are selected for verification. That's the federal process where your FAFSA application is reviewed to ensure the data is accurate. So If you're selected for verification, that's going to show up on your One.UF page on your to-do list. Verification is done through a third party called ProEd, so any documentation needed will be submitted directly to them. And once that process is complete, our office will receive a notification and we can continue with your financial aid. And again, with loans, if you want them, there's a couple extra steps you need to do once you accept them. So you'll accept it on your financial aid award package. You will complete your entrance counseling, your master promissory note, and you need to be enrolled at least 6 credit hours. But those items will also show up on your to-do list as well. Most financial aid requires the free application for federal student aid or the FAFSA. It's not automatic. You do have to complete it every year to be considered for federal aid. If you want to be considered for it, make sure to complete it as soon as possible. It's based off of prior tax information. So for example, the 2024-25 FAFSA is based off of 2022 tax returns. If your current financial situation is not reflected by that tax information, we do have petitions on our website for you to fill out. That way we can take into account your most recent financial situation. Most awards do require at least 6 credit hours of enrollment, so keep that in mind whenever you're choosing classes and you're managing your aid or your budget. We're almost at the end of our presentation, where we'll answer some questions that you may have. But one final topic I want to talk about is your One.UF page, where you can see all the information we spoke about before. So One.UF is going to be a page you want to be really familiar with. This is going to be where you register for courses, you view your schedule, your grades, your charges, your financial aid. This will also be where you see your authorized information release form. So there are laws that prohibit UF from releasing information concerning a student's record without the consent of the student. So if you would like for us to talk to your parents about your finances, or you'd like them to talk to us about anything, you will need to give them the authority to do so. And once again, you can do that on your One.UF. To access One.UF, you will need your GatorLink username and password, and it can be operated on your smartphone, tablet, desktop, essentially anywhere, anytime. When you first log in, it'll be the home page, and at the top, you'll see your action items. So this is where you'll see your holds. That might be holding, your financial aid disbursement or your class registration. It'll let you know what you need to do in order to remove the hold. You'll see your to-dos, so requirements you have to do that you must complete, as well as info. So this will be where general notices are. So maybe you'll get a info for the FAFSA being available for completion. Just an example. Action items can be posted by many departments on campus. So when it is there, you'll be told why an item has been posted, what it impacts, and what you need to do to satisfy that item, if applicable. You'll also see your campus finance page. So charges that will be posted to your account can be found here, like tuition, health insurance, your meal plan. Those will be on this page. This will also be where you sign up for direct deposit. So if you haven't done so already, this will be where you set that up. And then we have financial aid. So in this section, you can look at your aid for the next year. Your package will be posted in its respective year with a breakdown of what you are receiving. So this is what your financial aid summary page is going to look like. When you click on the financial aid section, this is what you're going to see. At the top, you'll see the SAP section that we mentioned earlier. So if you're receiving any federal aid like grants, federal work study loans, federal government requires you to maintain SAP. So it'll let you know your status in order to keep your financial aid eligibility. Underneath SAP, you'll see a summary of your federal aid and your cost of attendance. So we talked about the breakdown, but here you can see your specific breakdown for the semester. So for example, this one has fall and spring semesters. These are averages of education-related expenses, so it doesn't mean you'll accumulate the amounts posted. The point of the cost of attendance, again, is to just help you budget for the academic year. And depending on your schedule after drop add, this number may even change if you're taking more or less credits than what we've predicted. Summer B admit, you might only see the cost of attendance for summer 2024, just so you know. But your cost of attendance is based off of 15 credit hours for the fall and spring, so just keep that in mind. It is a prediction. So if you're in less or more, your aid might be adjusted. Underneath that, you'll see your actual aid package. So this will include any grants or scholarships you've received. If you've been awarded federal work study, it'll show there as well. Again, for federal work study, you have to apply for the job, you have to get hired, and then you earn your pay as your financial aid award. So any students who have been offered loans, those will appear here as well. You should see an option to take action where you can accept, reduce, or decline the loan. If you or your parents are interested in Parent Plus, you would do that application through studentaid.gov. For fall, you'll only see awards in the fall and spring column if you're offered aid. You'll see the award details, the amounts offered and accepted, and then the cumulative amount as well as the semesterly amount. At the very, very bottom, you will see that self-reported additional aid icon that we kind of talked about earlier. So this is going to be for anybody receiving additional aid. You can report it to our office, what award you have received and how much it's going to be. That way we can go ahead and add it to your financial aid award package. So make sure to report it before the semester begins so that your award package can be as accurate as possible. And if you have any questions, financial aid's really vital to a lot of our student success at UF. We covered a lot today, like what financial aid is, different types of award, how to apply, and how to receive it. You can always ask questions if you have any doubts or you want some clarification about something. You can always visit our website, see if you can find the info, but you can also contact the One Stop. They are very nice and they have so much knowledge about financial aid, scholarships, campus finances, holds, registrations, transcripts, so much more. So if you, let's say, are thinking about not enrolling half-time, maybe you have questions about study abroad, you can definitely ask the One Stop about any implications to your aid or your package before anything happens. But they're available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. online, over the phone, or in person. And thank you so much for sticking with me. We're at the very end. That's all I have today. So we are going to go through some of the questions just to see. So let me see if there's any that haven't been answered. And if you think of any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I will be scrolling through it. But otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you want to stick around for questions, please feel free. Let's see. I can also turn my video back on so we can see me. So Francesca asked, how much does it cost per credit hour for summer? Oh, and Susanna already answered. So, so the tuition cost for a Florida resident is going to be $212.71 per credit hour. So just keep that in mind whenever you are selecting your classes. It'll be that amount times however many credits you are enrolled in. Usually you should be at least half time just for most financial aid packages. So just keep that in mind whenever you're enrolling for your classes. Ash said for the Promise Scholarship, they said they will cover up to the cost of attendance. Yes, Ash, you are correct. So if you are a Promise Scholar, you most likely are starting in just a couple of weeks. So in order to have your cost of attendance met through different grants and scholarships, you need to complete your FAFSA. So please make sure that you have successfully completed your 2024-2025 free application for federal student aid and that you've listed the University of Florida. Once our office receives it and processes it, we'll go ahead and get you all packaged for the summer semester. It is just for summer bees, so it is about, I believe, $3,900 that's allocated to those students and their cost of attendance. So just keep that in mind. But yes, just make sure you submit your 2024-25 FAFSA because that'll be what makes you eligible to have your summer covered. We had a question, if I requested a reevaluation for financial aid, will I see the results? Yes, so if you submitted, this would be your financial aid revision petition, which is going to be if there's a change in your income from the information that you sent. Maybe you guys, you and your family have extra required medical expenses that are not reflected through your FAFSA. You would submit that financial aid revision petition. So students typically hear back within 10 business days from our committee based on the uh, results of their petition. But remember, a lot of your kind of feedback from us to you through email is going to be through your UFL email. So make sure you are monitoring your UFL email. That'll be where you hear back about the status of your petition or if more information is needed. If your financial aid has been indicated as being dispersed before the drop-ed period, and if you were to add a drop during the drop-ed period, would you have to pay back the aid given? Okay, little bit of a two-parter, I guess. So students who get their financial aid dispersed before the term are usually enrolled in a lot of credit hours. Usually they're enrolled in like 15 credit hours. But it's only for certain programs. So let's say you're enrolled in 15, right? Let's say during drop add, you drop a class and you don't add another one, drop add ends. Well, you were enrolled for 15 credit hours. We paid you for 15 credit hours. Now you're in 12. So you most likely will have to pay back aid because we can only give you what you are enrolled for. Now, if you add classes during the drop add period, again, it's going to be that cutoff point right after drop add ends. So however many credits you are enrolled in at that point in time is what we will disperse your aid for or recalculate your aid for. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully that answers your question. Gets a little bit complicated, especially when you're thinking about adding and dropping classes. So definitely recommend if you are ever thinking about adding a class or dropping a class, definitely reach out to the One Stop so they can explain it to you. I always say in person is better, better to get your question answered right away, and speak to a face and answer and ask any other questions that you might have as soon as they let you know the answer. But you can always reach out to the One Stop if you have any questions about your aid package and how that gets affected. In the cost of attendance, which dorm is it quoting for living expenses and the meal plan? So I currently am sharing my screen, but I can come look for it. So the cost of attendance is an average of our students. Wow, look at Susanna go. An average of their expenses. So it's not just one singular dorm. It's not just one singular thing. It's an average of the on-campus living expenses. Let's see, Susanna said, yep, it's a double room with a refrigerator and utilities at the average rates quoted by our average utilities and apartment complexes. So it's an average. It's not based off of just one cost for rent. Do keep in mind, this is a great point, Ash, which technically didn't ask, but something to keep in mind. There is a petition on our website for a budget increase form. So if your living expenses, if you're living somewhere that's more expensive than what we've allotted, maybe you have a special dietary plan that requires you to buy prescription food. Maybe you have prescriptions that you have to buy. You have expenses that are not in your cost of attendance. You can always submit a budget increase form. Maybe you have childcare that you're paying for in order to go to classes. You can submit a budget increase. On our forms, drop down on our website under the petitions, it'll tell you some examples of what qualifies for a budget increase. But that's a great note. If you do have expenses that are maybe a little bit more than what our average is calculated for, you can definitely submit that. So if it says under gift aid that I have the Pell Grant, that means that I could accept it. It's a great question. When it comes to grants and scholarships, those are gift aid, so those are typically accepted on your behalf, specifically for the federal Pell Grant. That's aid that you are entitled to, so it is accepted on your behalf. The things that you would need to take action on are going to be your loans. So if you want to accept, reduce, decline them, your loans, take action on federal work study, but you taking action is going to be you applying for a job and going through that whole application process. But otherwise, those are going to be the main things that you have to take action for. Other things will have been taken action for you. Does health insurance count to the budget increase? Another great question, Ash. It depends. So for our students that are paying for health insurance on their own, or maybe you have the health insurance from UF and therefore you are paying for it, you can definitely submit a budget increase to have that allocated into your cost of attendance. Now, if there are expenses that are not covered by you, the student, and are covered maybe by another entity, maybe it's a parent or guardian, maybe someone else is covering it for you, that is not an approvable expense. It has to be the student's expense. So definitely if you are paying for your health insurance or you are paying for UF health insurance, you can definitely submit that budget increase for that. And Susanna answered it. Oh my goodness, she's so fast. Okay. Um, there's not any more questions coming in, so I guess I will just say some common questions we get. If you have one, definitely feel free to drop it and we'll go ahead and answer it. But we get a lot of questions about Bright Futures and being enrolled in 12 credit hours. Again, from the slide, in order to be eligible for Bright Futures, you have to be enrolled at least a minimum of 6 credit hours, but that also means completing those 6 credit hours and earning them. We get asked about study abroad. It's a very big experience that our students always ask us about. We work with the UF International Center to get all of your information squared away, but the majority of your aid that you are receiving now can be used towards study abroad. So if you have any specific questions about specific aid, you can definitely ask the One Stop, but typically most of the students' aid can be used to study abroad. When do we typically disperse aid? Great question. So a lot of programs are based off of, oh my goodness, Susanna. A lot of financial aid is based off of a student's enrollment status and how many credits they're enrolled in. For example, Bright Futures. You get paid per credit hour. So we can't figure that out until the end of drop ad, which is why financial aid is typically released after drop ad each semester. Now, if your aid's not dispersing, there's a couple of things that might be keeping it. Either you weren't enrolled by the end of drop ad, maybe you have holds or to-dos on your account. maybe you're in federal verification, things like that are going to keep your aid from dispersing. So you always want to make sure that you are completing any checklist items to make sure that your aid doesn't have any holds. And if it's still not dispersing, definitely reach out to the One.UF so that we can double check your account and see if there's anything. But it's typically the first few weeks after the drop ad of each semester. If I do the revision petition and I receive help, is it something that is, oh my goodness, is it something that is only one time while I'm in college, or can I apply yearly? So, like Susanna said, students can complete the financial aid revision petition every single year. So, again, if your finances are not represented in your FAFSA, definitely something that you can fill out and definitely something you want to fill out every single year. That way, your financial aid package represents you, and we can actually take into account your current living kind of finances. Okay, more questions. Um, I don't know if I can think of any more common questions. I feel like you all hit all of the ones that I usually say. Um, I guess the other petition that we haven't talked about is the financial aid and scholarships petition. So if you, while you are at the University of Florida during your time here, if let's say you are a MASH in Florida Opportunity Scholar, or you have some sort of like state scholarship, university scholarship, and for some reason a lot of things happened. You were going through a lot a semester and you don't meet the eligibility requirements. You don't renew the program for the following academic year. You can definitely submit a petition to kind of explain your circumstances. That way our office can review it and let you know the status. But that's, I think, one of the few petitions we didn't already cover. Um, Financial aid disperses at, the beginning of the semester, so make sure you are budgeting and allocating your funds for the rest of the semester. If you live off campus, your rent's due every month at the beginning, so make sure that you have everything squared away. That way you're not kind of scrambling um, at the last second. Let's see, if your parents got a bachelor's degree in another country, are you still considered a first generation? Asking for a friend, she couldn't make it. Let's see. So I believe if their parent did get a bachelor's regardless, oh my goodness, where did it go? Of where it is, I do not believe they are considered a first generation, especially for the purpose of financial aid awards. Our first generation scholarships specifically through the university is going to be that MASH in Florida Opportunity Scholars or MFOS scholars. And those students have already been alerted if they are eligible for the program and going to be part of it for this upcoming academic year. So they would have been notified for that. If you're asking in terms for a outside scholarship, like some scholarships are just for first gen students, and that's definitely up to the donor. And you want to double check with the donor of whoever you're applying with or their criteria. Sometimes they list it out of like what they say qualifies as first gen. So they would want to, your friend would want to double check with that. If you possess a state tuition waiver, how does that affect the application of Bright Futures and other grants or scholarships? Great question, Jacob. So, for students who possess like a state tuition waiver, your eligibility for Bright Futures is going to be based off of your residency status. So that'll be the status that was worked with you and admissions where you sent in your documentation. And I believe on your admissions portal, it would have said what your residency determination is. So for programs like Bright Futures, you have to be a Florida resident. So even if you have a state tuition waiver that's covering kind of like that out of state portion and you're paying just that 212.71, you are most likely not considered a Florida resident. Double check your residency status. You most likely are not considered a Florida resident, and therefore you would not be eligible for the Bright Future Scholarship. What that state tuition waiver does is it just waives the out-of-state component fee of your tuition and fees. That way, instead of paying the I believe it's about $955, you're paying that 212. So it doesn't make you a Florida resident for the purposes of scholarships only for Florida residents. It just gives you a lower tuition rate, essentially. Hopefully that makes sense for you. But we'll see if any other questions trickle in. Otherwise, we will end at 5, just to be respectful of all of your times. I guess big one is if you are entering Summer B, which I believe the majority, if not all of you are, definitely want to make sure you have completed your 24-25 FAFSA, especially if you want to be considered for federal aid, because that application is going to close in like 2 weeks on June 31st. So, excuse me, definitely want to make sure that that is completed and sent to our office. The sooner the better so that we can load it in and make sure there's no issues with it. So definitely want to send that in. Make sure that UF is listed as your school on there so that we can load it. But yeah, otherwise, make sure you know what your aid package is. One last one. Will my cost be due before my aid is dispersed? Oh my goodness, Ash, great questions. So if you have financial aid, you get what is called a financial aid deferment deadline. This is to allow enough time for our office to process your financial aid. Because once again, sometimes we have to wait for drop add. Sometimes we have to wait for you to, complete verification, holds, things like that. That's holding up your financial aid, but you have aid waiting. So you get a financial aid deferred deadline. Now, this is after the typical payment deadline. So typically, a student's aid is all squared away by the time that that due date comes around. So Susanna listed the dates. So that'll have the due dates, but that's a great question. You do get a sort of buffer to allow us enough time to process your financial aid. But with that, it is 5 o'clock. So as promised, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for joining. I know it's a lot of information. Financial aid is a lot of information. So please reach out to the One Stop if you ever have any questions about your aid over these next 2, 4, maybe 6 years if you're thinking of grad school. Definitely reach out. But otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your summer, and a great start to the Summer B semester in just a couple of weeks. So reach out if you have any questions, but otherwise, go Gators. Can't wait to see you in the fall.